Welcome back to the Dizzy Diaries, the podcast where we explore the science, the stories, and the strategies that help you live boldly with chronic illness. I'm Tove, your exercise physiologist, chronic illness advocate, and occasional chaos coordinator. Today we're diving into one of my favorite topics, but we're doing it through a POTS-friendly lens. We're going to be talking about why strength training helps POTS. Strength training in itself can sound intimidating when you're managing fatigue, dizziness, or post-exertional symptoms. But the truth is, it's one of the most powerful tools we have for improving daily function. Think about it. If you look at your day from morning to end, think about the things that you do. If you get up and you're able to make a cup of tea, if you have to move boxes, if you do grocery shopping, even if you're just moving between the bed to the bathroom, you have to do movements that involve strength as well as capacity, mobility, and actual function and power through the body. These movements form part of activities of daily living, and strength training really helps to improve the muscle function, the power, and the strength to be able to do these movements. Strength training is not necessarily just for building muscle or looking a certain way or having a certain outcome, but rather focused on how do we get better and stronger as we get older so that we can try to maintain, build, and keep that independence of daily living. As we do on this podcast, let's talk about the science and the physiology behind why it works. Muscles act as a pump. When your leg muscles contract, they help push blood back towards your heart. In POTS, this mechanical pump becomes incredibly important. A 2021 review in Frontiers in Physiology highlighted that lower limb strength training can improve venous return and reduce orthostatic intolerance symptoms, not necessarily completely remove, but improve. Strength training, although slightly less than endurance training, increases plasma volume indirectly. Over time, consistent resistance training stimulates hormonal responses, and that fluid regulation is supported as well as plasma expansion. So more plasma in the body, better regulation and better use of that actual blood volume. Strength training supports to improve autonomic stability. So with people with POTS or dysautonomia, it makes sense that they have autonomic dysfunction. So we're trying to do movements and training that helps to improve that autonomic function and stability. So stronger muscles mean that you have less of a sudden drop in your stroke volume when you stand, which means there are fewer severe heart rate spikes. And lastly, as we said in the intro, it boosts functional capacity. So your everyday tasks, stairs, carrying shopping, walking the dog, working longer before crashing all becomes easier. Strength training by definition means using a resistance through the muscles to help them get stronger and adapt to different stresses. And this is why strength training is so important for everyone, but also with POTS, because it's low impact, it's scalable and adaptable based on where you are currently. There's no one size fits all, and that's why strength training, exercise, endurance training, whatever you do is so fun because you can make it work for you, you can make it interesting, you can change it week on week as long as you're getting those gentle progressions and making sure it suits your lifestyle and also makes you feel good. Let's talk about why it feels so hard when you start with strength training or you're trying to progress it. You're not imagining it. People with POTS often say things like, strength training wipes me out faster than it should. My heart rate skyrockets even with light weights, and one session goes well and then the next one floors me. Here's why. We have a general reduced stroke volume. We have possible deconditioning from past crashes, which are not your fault. When you have difficult symptoms or you're going through a difficult period, you tend to veer away from things that feel like they're challenging your system or give you symptoms. So that's why people have deconditioning. It's not to say deconditioning is the cause of your issues, but it may be a side effect of it. Temperature sensitivity. So when you're doing exercise, you usually get a little bit warmer, and this can be quite uncomfortable for people. And then obviously the blood pooling that we talked about earlier. This doesn't mean that you're weak or just deconditioned. Your physiology is working against gravity in more ways than other people really have to think about. So the goal isn't to train harder, it's to train strategically, and I said make it fun. There are a couple of videos on my social media platforms that you can see different strength movements to use, and you can find a couple of these online, but we're going to go through a few today in terms of foundations to progressing with exercise. Phase 1, we can talk about the foundation. If you're starting exercise, this can last between 2 to 6 weeks, and the main focus is on stability and muscle activation without creating that orthostatic stress or change of position stress. Exercises that you might include can be seated or reclined leg press, banded leg press, glute bridges, seated rows, core bracing or core engagement, dead bugs where you're lying down on your back, or mini banded side steps or side lying lifts. The intensity should be low, focusing on form and consistency and just getting comfortable with movement. The goal is to build your tolerance and reduce those heart rate spikes and stabilize symptoms as much as possible during this phase. Towards the end of this phase, you usually want to introduce movements that include you going from a lying position to a seated position to help build that tolerance of orthostatic or postural changes. And then we can go on to standing exercises when you feel ready for it. Standing exercises I would usually include at the end of your session so that everything's warmed up and you've got that capacity of doing heel pumps or calf pumps, which help with that venous return throughout exercise. The focus in the next phase, so let's talk about supported standing, is to transition upright with support. Exercises you might do here include wall sits with calf pumps to keep that blood flowing whilst you're holding the movement, supported squats with a chair, banded hip hinges, standing rows, heel raises, or introducing light dumbbell work. Dumbbells you can already start to include in your lying down exercises, as well as just using resistance bands if you don't have access to dumbbells. The intensity in phase 2 should be moderate using pacing rules, and the goal is to build anti-gravity strength and autonomic stability. Again, I spoke about reducing the symptom flares earlier. It doesn't mean that you won't have symptoms or that you won't still experience them going throughout these phases and later on in months and years to come. The goal is just that we're introducing more stability for the body and making it more comfortable with these changes and making you a little bit stronger. Phase 3, I would say, is more of an ongoing phase where we're talking about functional strength. So functional being your day-to-day movements and things that you need to live a healthy capacity and life. When we talk about the focus, we're thinking about training movements that are needed for real life and day-to-day. And exercises could be full squats where you're not using the chair anymore. Step-ups, think about how that translates to when you need to travel and you're going up and down stairs if you're able to do that. Deadlifts, again, you can do a light to moderate weight or use resistance bands. Lunges and upper body strength, which could include presses, rows, overhead progressions if tolerated, as these tend to be a little bit more difficult for people with POTS. So I would always start with body weight, then progress to resistance bands, and then progress to dumbbells if you're able to tolerate it. The intensity should be gradually progressive, and we work with the body, not against it. The goals here are to improve your confidence, to reduce those crashes, and just show you that what your body is actually capable of, and to determine your limits, and then just to boost your daily function. Let's go on to how we want to keep it safe. We're going to talk about the pacing rules for strength training and ones that I've found really helpful. So here's a system that works beautifully for people with chronic illness. And again, pick and choose the ones that work for you and remove the ones that don't, and try adjust them week on week depending on what you need that week. The first one is the 10 to 15% rule. Increase your weight, reps, or sets gradually. We don't want big jumps, but rather small, gradual progressions. Number 2 is symptom monitoring. You can use your rating of perceived exertion and your heart rate. So your RPE, which is your rating of perceived exertion, is a scale between 1 to 10. This means how are you feeling and how difficult is the movement. Usually for strength adaptations, we want that between 3 to 8. Anything below is going to be too low on the stimulus, and anything above is going to be pushing too hard. So if you can get between a 3 to an 8 and try find that 5 to 7, that would be ideal for strength training adaptations. In terms of your heart rate, aim to stay within your personal thresholds. This means thresholds that you find don't aggravate symptoms during or post exercise, and you might have to trial and error this a little bit, and watch for any warning signs like nausea, tremors, any buzzing, dizziness, or lightheadedness. Thirdly, let's go on to longer rest periods. People with POTS often need rest that can be between 90 to 120 seconds instead of just your 30 to 60 seconds that some people might use. It's allowed, so don't feel bad for having longer rest periods. The only thing I would say with rest is if you're doing movements where you're lying down on the floor, you can actively just completely rest. If you're doing any movements where you're standing, during that rest period, just do those calf pumps where you're lifting your right heel and then your left, because that means your body's still working and you're still getting that blood flow coming back up. The last thing we want to do is to do squats, stop the exercise, and then have all this blood flow going down to your legs, and then you feel really lightheaded. So if you're resting, 90 to 120 seconds, and just keep the feet moving. The fourth one is pacing windows. If your symptoms are flaring, you scale, meaning you're never trying to push to failure. If your symptoms are bad, scale it down that 10 to 15% for that week, and you can always progress it over the next couple of weeks. We're not looking for a perfect linear graph of going up here. Lastly, the most important thing is recovery equals progress. So we're focused here on the stimulus and what are we doing during the strength training, but what happens afterwards and in between. Let's talk about hydration, electrolytes, compression, and a cool environment can help massively for your recovery. And of course, make sure that you get enough sleep within your capacity and your realm of what normal sleep looks like. The last thing I want to talk about today, because it's all good and well to focus on the physical, is the mental side. You're trying to get your body to adapt and thinking about it in the terms of what strength do I need to do daily life? What strength do I need to achieve any traveling, any seeing friends, anything that I want to do day to day? We're not thinking about just, okay, well, I need to have strength improvements. Okay, I need to have a certain amount of muscle mass, all of that. We're looking at focus on daily function. Strength training with POTS is not linear and it will go up and down. If I could show you on a graph, it would be quite chaotic, and that's what I was talking about, bringing the calm to chaos. So think about it as it going up and down, but over time we're getting gradual increases and progression. You'll have strong days, symptom days, I just need to rest days, and all of those are valid. I want you to focus on celebrating the small wins and the big ones. It's something that I've tried to do a lot more recently with some changes in my life, all positive, but trying to celebrate the smaller wins. So think about consistency. Was I able to do this a couple of times this week? Not just day, but week. Is there self-awareness around wanting to train, doing my training, and how I feel afterwards? Am I pacing? Am I using my RPE and heart rate scales? And then just listening to your body. That is real athleticism. If you're navigating POTS or dysautonomia, remember, strength isn't measured by how much you lift, it's measured by how you show up for your body. Progress might be slow, but it's absolutely possible and absolutely worth it. Thank you for tuning in to this week's clinical episode of the Dizzy Diaries. If this episode helped you, please share it with a friend or someone who needs the reminder that strength training is for everybody. Yes, even the dizzy ones. Until next time, look after yourself, listen to your body, and as always, stay sparkly.